Hi, hello. My name is Jay. I'm the founder and data scientist at Airbnb. So today's topic is interesting topic personally for me because I've been a digital nomad myself. So I found a couple of digital nomad destinations from nomadlist.com, and these are some of the top digital nomad destinations, and I'd like to see which areas, which cities are best places to start an Airbnb. So, if you're a digital nomad like myself, you probably love the freedom to travel, bouncing different cities, quirking cafes, and new experiences. But after a while, it's natural to want something a little bit more permanent, like a base, a home you can return every year. So, one way that I have been doing is to invest in a short-term rental in a place you already love, somewhere you'd happily spend a few months each year. So the good news is that many of these destinations also have quite high short-term rental demands. So like these areas, this can be enough to cover your costs, and sometimes it can even fund your next flight. So instead of spending a lot of money on hotels or Airbnbs every time, you can probably buy a property and you can live there. And when you're traveling around, you can rent it out on a short-term rental. So these are some of the destinations that I'd like to go through today. So here it is. So the first one is Bangkok. So if you've spent time in Bangkok, you know the energy, like the nice quirking cafes, 24/7 food stalls, and very, very cheap accommodations like the condo with a rooftop pools can just cost around $40 a night. So for the short-term rental operators, this is the one of the most active Southeast Asian cities. So it's either Bangkok or Bali. This Bangkok is more of a city, urban type. So it has more year-round demands, although the seasonality is high. So January and February or December seems to be the high season, and this seems to be the low seasons. So year-round revenue for a typical listing is $11,677. So that's that's the expected revenue. So regulation is so short-term rentals is still a gray area in Bangkok, but enforcement is inconsistent, and many hosts still operate openly. So according to our database, there isn't the licensing, short-term rental licensing isn't strictly being enforced. So that's about the regulations. So for the ownerships, foreigners can buy condos, not the land, but you need to pay in full with cash. So financing is rarely an option, but you can still own a property as a foreigner. So 68% occupancy rate year round, $46 per night, and a lot of Airbnb listings, 60, 16, 8,000 listing. So there has been a rapid recovery since the COVID, but ever since then, the growth has been 10%, 12% every year. So it looks like the market is far from getting saturated. So for the amenities, pool seems to be the like very common amenities here, where like more than the half of the listings have pool. the most common size of the bedroom is 1 bedroom. So most of the listings, half of the listings are 1 bedroom listing. About 4,000 private rooms and so on. So let's take a look on the neighborhood. So this one just showed the listing count. So the dark red areas are the areas with high number of Airbnb listings. We can also see which one has the high occupancy rate. So this is the snippet of Bangkok. Let's take a look on Lisbon. So Lisbon is where surf vibes meet startup vibes. So it has laid back, relaxed, fun vibes, but at the same time, there are many digital entrepreneurs co-working spaces. So this can be a popular stop for the remote workers. The challenging bit is that regulation is pretty strict. So you need to have short-term rental license if you want to start an Airbnb in Lisbon. And they've introduced Airbnb free zones. So you'll need to be strategic in figuring out where to start an Airbnb in Lisbon. So there are some areas that you can do an Airbnb, and there are many areas where you can't do an Airbnb. Mainly the downtown areas, the Airbnb is not allowed. So yeah. So revenue is about 30,000 euros per year, and seasonality is a little bit milder, which means there's more of a less variations between high and low seasons. So low season seems to be the winter. 82% occupancy rate for a median listing. This is very high. So it means if you're an experienced host, if you can do reasonably well, you can expect to get like fully booked year round. So if you're a beginner host, you might expect a little bit less. Maybe in December, you'll be getting like 40% booked. But still in April, May, June, you can get a lot of bookings. So that's the perk. So actually, instead of going to the dashboard one by one, I'll actually share the Google Sheets of all the data points so that we can actually go through this a little bit faster. Um, all right. So the third destination is Canggu, Bali. So 71% year-round occupancy rate, $106 ADR per night, which is quite high compared to other Southeast Asian destinations such as Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur. So the revenue is naturally very high. You can also get an Indonesian residency if you put $120,000 in bank deposit. So that's something you can factor in. For 1 bedrooms in Canggu, you're expecting to make about $26,000 per year. And the property price, according to our research, was $189,000, which gives you about 14% yield, gross rental yield. So with the easy Airbnb regulations, they're quite rely on the short-term rental operators. So it's quite easy to. They're not strictly regulating Airbnbs right now, and I don't think they'll be doing it anytime future. So 14% yield. Um, as a foreigner, you can't own the land, but you can still own properties. So I don't know how it works exactly, but you can do a like 30-year lease, but you own the building on top of the house on top of the land. So you can consult with the specialist there. But when I was traveling there, I've met quite a few people who foreigners who still buy properties to do an Airbnb or just to live there. So you may want to check that out. So yeah, Bali is like that. The next destination that we are supposed to be looking into was Barcelona. So high occupancy rate, extremely good rental yield, relatively cheap property price compared to the revenue. But the catch is regulation is very strict. So they don't provide any new short-term rental license anymore. They're slowly banning the short-term rentals. So unfortunately, this isn't the place where you can start an Airbnb, but you can still live in Barcelona and you can look at places like Valencia, Alicante, or Zaragoza. So those are all well connected by train from Barcelona, and they're quite more short-term rental friendly. Although Valencia started to talk about the regulations, but other two, as far as I know, they're still open about the short-term rentals. Kuala Lumpur. So Kuala Lumpur is underrated place, I would say. They have a really fast internet, modern apartments, and high-rise city views at a fraction of the price of the most of the capitals. So it's very nice place to live, but the catch here is foreigners can only buy the properties that's worth more than 1 million ringgit, which is about 230,000 US dollars. So, but you can still buy the landed properties. So that's actually pretty good. But the thing is, there are only three popular neighborhoods where the property prices are over 1 million ringgit. So those are the Monkiara, KLCC, and Desa Park City. But the Desa Park City don't allow Airbnb. So you only have two options, Monkiara or KLCC. So for the yield is 11%, although this isn't specific to Monkiara or KLCC, but I wouldn't generally recommend starting on short-term rental in Kuala Lumpur unless you really want to live there and unless you really want to own a property. Then even if the yield is low, it's still worth it. The reason being is it's too competitive. There are so many short-term rentals. So as you can see, the ADR is really low. And these ones are actually really, really good properties. So actually I can show you some properties in Kuala Lumpur here. So if you go to the map, you can actually see the individual listings here. So look at these kind of properties. they're only like $34 per night, or like $96 for a 3 bedroom unit, only at $96 per night, or like $34 per night for a very small listing. But they look very nice. So yeah, this is what I mean by it's very competitive market. So Kuala Lumpur is quite tricky. If you want to have a base in Kuala Lumpur as a digital nomad, I'd rather recommend you to look into Kota Kinabalu. So you can buy a really nice luxury apartment. Their short-term rental yield is 3 times higher. So hell, it's a nice place to live, but maybe not for an Airbnb. Going back to this Excel file here. So Sibili is not the place that I'm familiar with, but Georgia is becoming a nomad favorite. Friendly visas, low taxes, and surprisingly strong short-term rental returns as well. So for the ownerships, foreigners can buy freely, no special visa required to invest. You can find a solid one bedroom for $80,000 with over 11% yield, which is pretty good. So the next one is Dubai.